G'day everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jono. Today we're going to take a look at one of my all-time favourite varietals of coffee, and that is Wush Wush. That's right, we're looking at Wush Wush. Now, I've got two examples in front of me, both from Colombia. However, Wush Wush is actually a town, a province in Ethiopia, not far from Sidamo and Jimma, which are both famous coffee growing areas. Now, in and around Wush Wush, a lot of really high quality tea is grown. And inherently, Wush Wush has really taken on a lot of tea-like flavours as a varietal, which is a really interesting and really cool flavour profile for this bean to have. Wush Wush is often referred to as a really rare coffee, and in a lot of ways it still is. We're seeing a lot of Wush Wush come out of Colombia these days, which is really great because Colombia is home to a lot of different processing methods. So we're seeing those processing methods added to what is already a really unique bean. Wush Wush is a species that has about 20 different genotypes in its genome at the moment. However, the genome cord is not really susceptible to mutation, and we're not going to really see Wush Wush spliced with another bean for that matter, or at least we won't anytime soon. What it does mean though is that what it is now has happened through actual natural mutation, which lends so much to the uniqueness. And in my mind, like, Wush Wush is a great representation of a wild coffee, a coffee that's grown absolutely in the wild, and it's developed and survived on its own, and that sort of thing brings uniqueness to a flavour profile. Here we have two examples of Wush Wush from Colombia. We have Finca La Mallorca from the Castellanos family, and here we have Finca Monteverde from the Guilletes family. These two coffees represent so much of what I would perceive to be a wild coffee and what we come to expect Wush Wush to do nowadays. With the Monteverde Wush Wush, we see a lot of discoloration in the green bean, and that does translate into the roasted bean as well. Whereas the Castellanos, the La Mallorca Wush Wush, we see a lot more uniformity. However, we do see a real similarity in the size of beans and the shape of beans for both. In terms of processes for these coffees, they're both naturally dried. However, they are both being susceptible to different types of fermentation. The Monteverde Wush Wush has a 36-hour fermentation, and the La Mallorca Wush Wush has an anaerobic fermentation for 48 hours. Now, the difference could be as simple as one has the lid off and one has a lid on with a one-way valve to only let air out. The difference between an atmospheric fermentation and a closed fermentation really can be chalk and cheese. So for these two beans, both those processes really highlight certain unique attributes of each bean. The uniqueness of Wush Wush itself really extends all the way through the coffee process, not just at the tree and in the process. The Monteverde Wush Wush really has a strong aroma, very fermenty, quite off, and as it's roasting, it can smell like old socks. However, it tastes amazing. In terms of the La Mallorca Wush Wush, the aroma is much less pronounced. It's still obviously fermented, however, there's no off or really sickly smells that we get out of the Monteverde. One thing that I always find really interesting about coffee is that it doesn't always taste how it smells. And those smells that might sound bad when I'm talking about the Monteverde Wush Wush, they translate into amazing flavours in the cup. It's extremely herbaceous, there's a lot of savoury notes, there's still plenty of sugar, and there's a lot of tea notes as well, a lot of chamomile tea. The La Mallorca Wush Wush, on the other hand, is extremely tropical. It's very sweet. There is an abundance of flowers in the flavour as well. And the fruits are really ripe, so that's really reminiscent of the fermentation that it's been subjected to, carried over into the flavour. As you just saw, we've made 2 V60s, and the first one I'm going to taste is the Monteverde. And I tell you what, it just hits you in the face straight away with its herbaceousness, lots of chamomile tea. There's a really nice kind of savoury thing going on, but then there's also a really good balance of sweet and sour, kind of like an umami style of flavour. Now over to the La Mallorca, we're seeing something very different. It's so tropical and it's so sweet. It's almost sickly sweet. Definitely something you could play with your ratio with in the V60 and get some really different flavours out of it. However, it's much more balanced than the Monteverde. All right guys, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you got something out of this. Wush Wush is such a cool and unique coffee. Please go out and find one, try one if you haven't already. If any questions, please head down to the comment section and I'll do my best to answer any of those. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you in the next video.